Welcome again to Brookside's Daily Devotions. Name's Stanley. Thank you very much once again for joining me today. Thinking today about, Britain's Got Talent. And maybe you've watched it on the TV, that series that has gone on for many years. And whether it's people singing, dancing, doing some strange sort of act, maybe teaching a dog how to do maneuvers to music. Whatever it's happened to be, Britain's Got Talent, and they're trying to find out or find from people who is really talented and can entertain people and use their talents for that, and who's the best at that. A show that's probably been used around the world in other countries as well. Thinking today not about Britain's Got Talent, but the talent that has been given to you and me by God. And I'm referring here today to Matthew chapter 25. If you have a Bible, please turn to it. Matthew chapter 25, reading from verse 14. And a talent here, just to explain in the Bible, was coins that were of a certain value, almost like a bag of coins, you could imagine, but they were worth 20 years' wages, a labourer's wages for 20 years, an extremely valuable amount of money. And so if we had that today, if you had that in a bag today, that would be worth a high amount of money. And so the Bible talks about this talent and meaning money and property or whatever else and what we have been given. But to think today not only of that, but to think about it in the sense of talent, that we understand the word to be something that God has given to us that we can use, some skill that we have, some way that we are good, something that we're good at that God can use, or something that we can develop even we're not good at, and use that for the extension of God's kingdom and to glorify Him. Matthew 25, verse 14 says, "For it was like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted to them his property. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, to each according to his ability." So God here clearly can give each one, although it says a man, of course it's a parable, and God gives each of us according to what He wants to give to each one. Each one of us is not equal in what we possess, resources we have, but each is encouraged to be faithful, to use that which God has given us for the extension of His kingdom. He who received the 5 talents went out at once and traded with them. He made 5 more. So also he had 2 talents made 2 talents more. And then a but comes in verse 18. "But the one who had received the 1 talent went and dug in the ground and hid his master's money." Sometimes in the time of Christ, people would have done that actually for safekeeping. But this man was not doing this for safekeeping, as we start to see more and more in the story. Now, after a long time, the master of those servants came and settled accounts with them. A reminder here of maybe the return of Jesus. What would we be like if the Lord returned today? What have we used? What have we given for service? As the things that God has given to us, the resources He's given to us, again, whether that's monetary or whether that's physically or whether that's talents that we have to use for Him in other ways, have we used those as He would have wanted us to do? "And he who had received 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 talents more with him, saying, Master, deliver to me 5 talents here. I have made 5 talents more. And his master said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master." Lovely here, this commendation, and it's a commendation of being a good and faithful servant. If you're a believer in Christ today, that's what we want to be, good and faithful servants to Jesus, to follow our Master and to use what He has given us. And sometimes develop what He has given us. Sometimes we're frightened a little bit or skeptical about, could I do that for the Lord? Sometimes we need a little push. Sometimes God needs to move us a little. Sometimes a little out of our comfort zone. And to encourage us to do these things as good and faithful servant. Is that what we will be? What will be the cost of following Jesus? We need to take that on board and follow him. And he came to him who had 2 talents, and exactly the same happens. Master, you delivered me 2 talents. I've made 2 talents more. His master said to him, well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. And he had received the 1 talent came forward and said, Master, I knew that you are a hard man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where you scattered no seed. So I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here you have what is yours. This man puts the emphasis on the master. You're a hard man. He's frightened of you. And he's using excuses. He's pushing back onto the master. Rather than doing the thing, he is lazy and says, I didn't do those things because I knew what you're like. But his master answered him, said, you wicked and slothful servant, you knew that I reap where I have not sown, gather where I scattered no seed. Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers, and at my coming I should have received what was my own with interest. So take the talent from him and give it to him who has 10 talents. For to everyone who has, more will be given, and he will have an abundance. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken from him. Stark, as we close this, a stark reminder that we've been given and we should remain faithful. And this one who goes off and hides the money in this sense, here is rebuked fiercely. What will it be like for us when we meet the Lord? Will he say to us encouraging words, well done, my good and faithful servant? Or will he say to us, where it says to this final verse, and cast the worthless servant into the outer darkness? In that place there'll be weeping and gnashing of teeth. We don't win our way to heaven. We come through salvation in Christ and in Christ alone, but we have a job to do, a task to do, and God has given us something to do that with. He's given you and me talents in our lives. He's given us opportunities to serve him. Let's be faithful. Let's remain faithful. Maybe there's an opportunity for you today to serve him, maybe in a new way, or maybe going back to something that you helped in the past with. Maybe it's children's work, youth work. Maybe it's investing time in your community. Maybe it's at work, encouraging others to think about Christ. Maybe it's witnessing. Maybe it's helping someone in need. Using what God has given you to help others for the sake of Christ, for the sake of the kingdom. We who know Christ want to live for him and use that he has given to us to serve the Master faithfully. Thank you very much once again for listening.